All right, guys. My name is not Bobby, and this is not Bobby's perspective. But ever since I saw Phil Escott confess his Tourette's like compulsion to imitate Bobby Guy, Bobby Guys, or Bobby Risto. I'm not sure how that works, but I'm a big fan of both Phil Escott and Bobby Guys. So I love imitating both of those guys. So, anyways, I figure I might as well open that. I'm actually Tom. This is actually the Ketogenic Fasting Project. And tonight I'm talking about pate. What is pate? Well, pate is basically a mixture of fat and liver. Now, why talk about pate? Well, it's just another preparation for liver. A lot of people aren't crazy about eating liver, especially cooked liver, and I get it. I'm not crazy about cooked liver. Never really fell in love with the liver and onions. Didn't grow up with it. And not to gross anybody out, but if I had my druthers, I'd just eat liver raw. It tastes great raw. Once you cook it, it tastes a little funky to me. But let's start the little slideshow I got presented here. Boom. I hope you're seeing what I'm seeing. I think you are. So anyways, it's sort of a whipped concoction in this case because I make it in a food processor because I don't live in a cave. I'm just saying. And it's basically, in my case, a mixture of fat and liver with some salt. Nothing terribly exciting, I'm afraid. In fact, I didn't start making it myself until I consulted with the folks at Paleo Medicina, and they recommended a ratio of about 3 parts liver to 1 part fat. Liver is a very lean meat. So, of course, it's an organ meat. It's rich in vitamins. They have good success with healing people. And so I took their advice, and I'm glad I did because the psoriasis is basically gone. You could see kind of where it was, but, it kind of left a little footprint that's not entirely gone, but I don't suffer like I did. It's just kind of healing up and going away. And pate was a big part of that. So here you can see this is a liver I bought. I think this was actually a sheep liver. I couldn't swear to it, but I've got it sitting in a colander here draining. You can see the inspection stamp on it. This, I believe, was beef liver that I was cutting up. Sorry, no inspection stamp on this one. You can see here I'm slicing it up. I tend to let it drain. In this case, it's sliced up and salted. This is kind of how I cut it to drop into the food processor. And here it's cooked in a pan before it's gone in the food processor. As you can see, I'm weighing it out here. This is 1,372 grams. Yes, I'm an American, and I use imperial units most of the time. When it comes to cooking, I just find it simpler to use grams. This are some cow leg bones. Why are they in a cast iron pan? These cow leg bones are in a cast iron pan because I am warming them up to get the marrow out. So as you can see, there's some meat on the side here. Dogs love to chew on that. I warm them up in a pan. I flip them over, and I extract the marrow. Here you can see the marrow has been extracted. There's a little bit in the bottom of the pan there. And you can see the meat on the outside slightly cooked. Dogs love chewing on this. They love licking the marrow out and whatnot. Marrow really just counts as fat. So if we're talking about making some pate that's 3 parts liver and 1 part fat, you could use the marrow. I get something on the order of 100 grams of marrow out of a pound of bones. I realize I'm mixing my units, but when I buy them, they come packaged by the pound or pound. Say it'll be like 2.2 pounds or whatever. So it just so happens that when I heat up a pound of bones, I get roughly 100 grams of marrow. Just a rule of thumb to help people out. You're out there shopping and thinking, yeah, I'm going to get some marrow bones and I'm going to get the marrow out and I'm going to make something out of it or eat it or work it into my diet. Just a little tip. This is fat. This is beef fat. I get beef fat from the butcher. I usually call them and say, hey, could you guys save me some fat trimmings? And they go, sure, come by in an hour or whatever. And they usually sell it for $1.29 a pound. Sometimes they give it to me for free. Sometimes the meat cutters are like, well, if you're gonna buy some steaks, we'll just throw in some fat. Sometimes places don't even have a barcode for the beef fat. So they're like, oh, well, if you're going to buy some meat, we'll just wrap it all up together and we'll tag it for the price of whatever cut you're actually buying that we have a barcode for. So it's kind of all over the place. It just depends, I think I might have said I paid $2.29 a pound for it in a previous video, but I really meant I was just paying $1.29 a pound for it, which is cheap eats. I go in and I cut off this beef here. Sometimes this comes from like prime rib and stuff. So I've gotten 2-3 days worth of beef just cutting off these trimmings, which, of course, if you're on a budget, this will save you a lot of damn money. Here you can see this is some of the tougher and more structural fat. I'm separating it out, just taking a picture because not all fat's the same. Some of it's softer and easier to bite through, and some of it's tougher. It's got more tissue or more fascia attached to it. Some of it's got more muscle meat attached to it. It just depends. And if you take a few minutes with a decent knife, you can separate that out. And if you're rendering it, you don't really even have to worry too much because you could strain it out later. If you're mixing it in, and you're trying to get a good ratio because you want to stay ketogenic or something like that, you might have to eyeball it a little more or be a little pickier or whatever. But in the end, it's a piece of cake. So you can get your fat content from trimmings or you can get it from bone marrow. Bone marrow, in theory, is probably going to be a little more healing. So if you're like me and you've got a autoimmune diseases you're trying to heal up, let's say you got leaky gut, in my case, I had psoriasis. You're going to probably want to lean towards a little more fat. That'd be my guess. But again, it's just a guess based on a little bit of experience and a lot of research and some advice from professionals. And here you go. It's just another shot of cutting up some fat. You can see there's plenty of muscle kind of on the edges here and stuff like this. This also is a little bit tougher, more structural type fat. And here you see it in a bowl, just sorting it out, getting ready to weigh stuff. And then this is an entirely cooked meal. This is a combination of cooked fat, ground beef, and pate. And it's almost impossible to see the pate in here because it looks like ground beef. And here's one of the things that I noticed when I mixed in some pate with these meals that I prepare and take to work, and then I warm them up. Once I warmed them up for the second time, I didn't notice the pate or the liver flavor, as it were, at all. So I'm taking the liver, cutting it into pieces, cooking it in a cast iron pan. I'm taking the fat, cutting it into pieces, cooking it in a cast iron pan, mixing them both with salt. Then I'm putting them into a food processor with a ratio of 3 parts liver to 1 part fat, adding in some salt to taste, whipping it up in a food processor, and it comes out like this. So this was part of my daily diet, not necessarily my daily routine. I think they say it lasts like 3 to 5 days. To be perfectly honest with you, I ate it more than once when I was more than 5 days old. I'm not saying that's a good idea, but I did. I didn't really notice any difference. Of course, I keep it in the refrigerator, and it has a pretty mild flavor, even if you just use salt. Of course, I think I mentioned in a earlier video, I tried soaking the liver in salt water overnight. It might have tamed down the flavor a little bit. It was kind of hard to tell. If you're not avoiding plant-based foods like vinegar, or you're not avoiding dairy like milk, a lot of people will soak not just liver, but game meat in vinegar to kind of mellow out the flavor, or they'll soak it in milk to mellow it, specifically the liver flavor. You could do that. I was avoiding both dairy and plant-based foods. Now, traditionally, dishes like pate or liverwurst or brunschweiger, they're seasoned with herbs. I say herbs just for Bart K, because it gets mad when us Americanas don't pronounce our H's. But um, the herbs like marjoram kind of detract from that earthy liver taste. I always think liver kind of tastes like clay smells, but whatever. If you go buy liverwurst or brunschweiger, they're almost always seasoned with marjoram, but they also have things like potato starch and uh, dextrose and stuff like that in it. So obviously, if you're trying to stay ketogenic, or you're avoiding plants, you're trying to heal up your autoimmune disease, those are all things to avoid. Mixing in pate like this with ground beef or whatever, you really can't even tell it's there, especially once you reheat it. So anyways, I just wanted to try and make a little helpful video here about pate, my experience with it. I like I said, I'm not a big fan of liver, and it's okay, and when it's reheated, it's kind of neutral. And, if you're not adverse to eating raw meat and you can get nice, fresh, uncontaminated meat, you might just want to try it raw. Uh, in the hierarchy of the flavors, I think I mentioned this before, raw pork liver had the best flavor to me. And I'd say like sheep or lamb was kind of a close second to beef. It's hard to tell. I even have a hard time telling the difference between like a mature beef liver, which, as I recall, can go up to like 10 pounds. But I never bought a 10-pounder. But I've gotten calf livers that were about 3.5 pounds, 2.5 pounds, something like that. And I couldn't really tell the difference from the bigger livers, to be honest with you. Um, you know, do you want to eat organ meats? Well, it probably depends. People like myself are trying to get over autoimmune diseases and stuff like that. I don't have any known vitamin deficiencies. I've been carnivore for over a year and a half now. I've had a lot of blood work done for various reasons. I don't know of any deficiencies, but I went forward with this because the people at Paleo Medicina have an incredible track record of helping people like myself heal. So I followed their advice. I have no regrets. It worked, and I can't say enough good things about it. It wasn't very expensive to get their advice. I think it was money well spent. I'm sure I would have spent more time and money on medicines and remedies and stuff like that. So anyways, that's my little spiel on pate. Yeah, I'll continue to eat liver in the future. These days, I frequently will eat. I like raw steak. I had raw T-bone. Actually, not the whole thing because I'm restricting calories to cut fat right now. But I had part of a raw T-bone before and after my workout today, and I had raw New York strip, part of it anyways, yesterday because I was just really hungry and I've been working out a lot. So I have my best workouts when I eat raw. I don't know why. I don't like to claim there's any kind of science behind it. Maybe it's 100% psychological. I've been mostly fasting right now. My caloric intake's well below what I'm burning off these days. And I got over my autoimmune disease, and now I'm cutting fat. And I just, that's my path. I'm not saying that's a path for everybody else, but anyways, if you want to get a little extra vitamin in, eat some pate, get that liver in. Anyways, thanks guys for watching. Again, I'm Tom for the Ketogenic Fasting Project. I'm kind of the curator of Autistic Carnivores on Facebook. And I also have the Ketogenic Fasting Project on Facebook. Carnivores Beating Autoimmune Disease, and Carnivory Keto. I have a number of small groups on Facebook that are all sort of niche Facebook groups. And please pass this video along to anybody who might help. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the little bell icon so you get notifications when new videos come out. Let me know in the comments, what you think of the video, how I can improve them, or what other information I might be able to share that you'll be interested in or that might help somebody else. Again, thanks for watching. I appreciate any support I get.